channel. Ever since I got the SV, I've been saving for another car, and quite honestly, the money has been burning a hole in my pocket. I've been trying to find another car I like, I just haven't had much luck. At the top of the list was the Ferrari 812 Superfast. The problem for me with that car is, given the choice between the SV and the 812, I would always want to drive the SV. So it's really not worth it for me to spend that type of money on a car that I just wouldn't really drive that much, given that I don't drive what I have very much because I have no time. But that just compounds the problem. The next on the list was a McLaren 720S, and I really like the 720S. But the 720S reminds me of the NSX, just a whole hell of a lot faster, and it does everything better, but it's still kind of the same type of driving experience. A very good car, it's just too good for me. When I only have a little bit of time to drive these cars, I almost want them to kind of be difficult, if you know what I mean. Just like Drew. Then the other car on the hit list was a new NSX. That would fit well into my program, but I don't want anything with hybridization. So what I'm waiting for is an NSX Type R, where they remove the hybridization and it's just the twin turbo V6. Now my friends at Honda tell me that there's a lot of talks to do that. Nothing's confirmed, but that is something that I am ready to go as soon as it's available, at least if I like the way it drives. In analyzing all these potential cars, I said it once, I'll say it again, the key to me is putting a smile on my face. I don't buy cars for performance, because the new models always have more performance, otherwise they wouldn't sell cars. That just leads to a road of unhappiness. So what I like to buy is something that I enjoy. A good example is this NSX. Still puts a smile on my face. Now, at 270 horsepower in 1991, it was underpowered. Still today, it's underpowered. But typically I don't hear people talk much about that. I hear them say more that it was a game changer, a classic car. Some of the things as time goes on are just kind of forgotten. So, at least for me, I have to keep that in mind whenever I'm looking for a new car. Maybe that'll help you, maybe it won't. But the deal with that is, you kind of don't realize it until a long time has passed and it's down the road. The other car on my shopping list is the Ford GT, and that has been there since they announced it was going to be made. Unfortunately, I applied twice, but no luck. I just wasn't meant to get one, at least at current time. Now I am watching the pre-owned ones that come available, but now is not the time to buy one, because those of you that watch them know that they are coming off, and right now at a rapid rate. So it would be best to wait till they level off a bit and see where it lands. But that could potentially be in my near future. The problem being, all these options, not available, money saved, ready to go. What that means for me is I end up buying parts for my current cars that I really don't need and probably shouldn't be spending the money on. But lately, there's been a movement within my family. And at first, when the idea was brought to me, I thought it was insane and a really horrible idea. But it is to get a motorhome. Yes, that's right, motorhome. Which really doesn't have much relation to any of my other cars. The closest car I could think of is this car because of the practicality, if you want to call it that. But as you can see, my mind works in strange ways. Well, my parents, being older, do not want to travel in the current situation, and Drew and Natalia also do not want to stay in hotels. So after thinking about it and realizing, well, if it's a difference between my parents sitting at home and rotting, or traveling with their granddaughter enjoying family time, I guess that's got to be the priority. 25 foot seemed to be the magic number, and the greatest thing about the 25 footer is there's an option to have it built on the platform of the Mercedes Sprinter van. Now, a word of caution for those of you who want to get into the motorhome deal. I feel like I know a little bit about cars with all my experience, and none of that applied to motorhomes, and I'll tell you why. Because first off, you have the chassis, which is made by different manufacturers, and then you have the coach, which is actually the motorhome portion, made by other manufacturers. And there are just an infinite amount of options and customizations. So the problem being, when you're someone like me and you're price shopping, trying to compare apples to apples is almost impossible. And to make matters even worse right now, there's a shortage of motorhomes because many people classify them as the safest way to travel, which is great, but again, bad timing for Adam, which of course means you have to pay a premium. It'd be nice to get a good used one because they depreciate heavily, eye-watering depreciation, worse than anything I've ever seen. But the problem is, I don't like to wait. So what did that cost? A new one. The benefit being, we're up and running immediately. Now I'm going to assume that most of you are not really that interested in motorhomes, nor am I. However, the story is kind of interesting because everyone seems to be getting them right now. And if you are a family person like me, that's a great thing. And at the same time, I'm very sad because it's insanely uncool compared to all my other cars. And it just makes me seem even older. No offense to those who own them. That's just the way I feel about it. It's like a house that's going down the road and vibrating and inevitably will slowly fall apart. How do I know this? Because my parents had their Bounder, lots of good times in that, by the way. And for some unknown reason, because now Drew does not want to fly or take Natalia to fly, she's working on me to drive the motorhome to Disney World. So we don't have to go on a plane, and then of course we could stay in the motorhome, which I'm not super excited about. For any of you that are thinking about getting a motorhome, I have no problem answering any questions that you might have. Feel free to ask me in the comments. I know hardly anything, but maybe I can pass on something. You'd be better off asking me maybe possibly about, I don't know, various kinds of fishing poles versus motorhomes. But in any case, I'll leave that decision up to you. Well, with all that being said, let's go check out the motorhome. Looking at the two of these rides, if you squint your eyes really hard, they kind of look the same, but not really. I mean, starting out with the exterior, I love yellow, so of course the NSX is in yellow. Now, one thing I really like about the motorhome is that everything is custom painted. First time I saw this thing, I actually thought that the graphics were vinyl, but after closer inspection, I realized it was painted, and that made it a whole lot cooler. Above the paint, my favorite part on the exterior of the motorhome is the gigantic Mercedes symbol, because I don't come across a lot of Mercedes motorhomes, but in truth, it's a Sprinter van. Just has a coach or a motorhome built on it. Now, other than that, there's not a whole lot of comparison here. The bottom line is that the motorhome is much more practical, makes me look really old and uncool, where the NSX, to me, is still very cool and is a classic. The problem being, I can't take very many people with me, and so this would be ideal. Now, let's talk about engines. The NSX has a 3-liter V6. The amazing thing is, the Sprinter van has a 3-liter V6. But that's where things change greatly. The Sprinter van is a turbocharged diesel. The NSX was a naturally aspirated V6, and now all of you know mine is supercharged. It makes a whopping 188 horsepower. That is really underwhelming, considering that the NSX made 270 naturally aspirated in 1991. In fact, I always worry that I won't even have enough power to go. Amazingly enough, it seems to move. Now, the motorhome weighs in somewhere around 11,000 pounds, which makes the situation even worse because the NSX weighs around 3,000 pounds. So that power to weight ratio is just horrid. In fact, it's probably the worst out of any of my vehicles. But take a look inside the engine compartment. You can get a good look from my angle, but the back of the engine is right there at the firewall. There's plenty of room to do all sorts of modifications that I really have no desire to do, seeing that it is a motorhome. But in any case, of course, to get an idea of the real estate available in the NSX, we'll just take another quick look. You would think with the motorhome weighing around 11,000 pounds and not having the greatest aerodynamics known to man that it would get terrible fuel economy. And you would probably be right. However, it does get around 13 miles per gallon, which is pretty amazing. That is what the NSX gets. Both vehicles much better, especially impressive with the size of the motorhome and the coefficient of drag versus, let's say, I don't know, the SV or the Mercy, which usually gets around 4 miles per gallon. Now I'll give you just a quick tour of the inside. As you can see right down the middle, it's fairly tight right now. But one thing that has changed greatly in motorhomes that wasn't available when my parents got their first motorhome when I was a kid is slide outs. Take a look at this. space in here. Quite the difference. Pretty cool, actually. So obviously we have these nice lounge chairs my parents like to travel in, and they also recline. Up on top there you can see that Natalia has her own little area that she can isolate herself, and my new job up here is driving this van. The nice thing about it is that it's a Mercedes. That of course was one of my requirements. Now we'll take a drive on it later so I can give you a bird's eye view of how wonderful it is to drive. Quite amazing. All the amenities of a normal type house, but not really. Flat screen TVs, DVD players, a nice kitchen with a microwave, stove, you've got your refrigerator, everything you need to go and have a good time. Or maybe take it to the racetrack. That's just not what I intend to do. But for all of you that are younger, yes, you may laugh, and this is something probably for somebody older like me, especially with a family, but keep this in mind. In the supercars, you can typically only hold one other person, unless you're in, let's say, the 996 Turbo, and you still can only hold 3 then. I mean, you can pile them in, but do you really want young females destroying those expensive seats? Look at it in here. It's like a mobile party. All you do is hire a driver, and you're ready to roll. Let the good times roll is what I say. All right, so let's take a quick look in the back. In the back here, you have room to travel, and of course, another flat screen TV. That would be a bed, possibly for somebody very small, like Natalia. But here's a trick about that. It's pretty amazing how much real estate you gain when you push the slide outs. But here's the most important thing. I don't know about you, but I really don't like using public restrooms. I will, but it's not my first choice, and especially those of you that are well familiar with the racetrack and the porta potties. Very bad times. So what is the best part for me about this motorhome? Take a look at this. Yes, a full-size restroom with also a shower. Okay, well, here we go. What an interesting ride. To be fair, I will say that it's quite responsive for how heavy it is. As we go around the corner here, I almost feel like we're gonna roll over. That's something I'm not used to in any of my cars. But then again, none of them are this tall. All in all, this handles pretty horribly. There's no question about it. The trade-off for practicality and luxury, I'm not sure if it's worth it. I almost feel like we're riding on marshmallows, just kind of bouncing down the road, not really sure what's going to happen. We're at a 20-mile-an-hour corner here, and I'm going 30, and I'm afraid for my life at this point. I don't know if you're getting perspective of how much body roll we have, but literally it is quite frightening. There's no question about it. I don't know if it matters how great this thing is, because we may never get anywhere, because we may roll over and die before we get there. And of course I had to look back because there's a vehicle slowing down in front of us and we have to brake way, way ahead. Right? No late braking in this, that's for sure. And again, you can hear many various creaks and rattles like that, which for something that costs this much is quite alarming. Not to mention that it feels like it's kind of falling apart as we're going down the road, even though it's brand new. And there we go, the responsiveness is pretty amazing for how big this thing is and how little horsepower it makes. But that is of course the ultimate trade-off. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the miles per gallon here, and it kind of becomes an interesting thing. When I drive my cars, it's all about performance, how fast I can go. When I drive this, I kind of feel like I'm regressing into the Stone Age. It's all about how many miles per gallon I can get. It's kind of like a game. When it reads out there, you know, you're always trying to do better. Oh yeah. We're looking really uncool. Really uncool. And the person behind the camera is Drew. Now she's laughing, of course, because she doesn't care that it's uncool, because she likes luxury and is still trying to convince me that it's a wise decision to take this all the way to Florida. Which I'm appalled at. I think that'd be a very bad idea. So if you take a look out of the windshield, very good visibility. Much better than any of my other cars. If you look toward the back, very poor visibility. In fact, the worst out of any of my cars. That, of course, is why you have these cameras. I'm going to mention this about the cameras because JC in a Studebaker doesn't have side mirrors. He has cameras on the side. So I was thinking that'd be a great idea, and I should change my cars to cameras. This is the only vehicle I've driven that has side cameras, and I hate them. For some reason, it's because I just can't mentally get used to looking there to see on the sides. I have to look towards the mirrors. So for me, it just wouldn't work. You can hear the turbo spool up, which is pretty amazing. Lots of spooling, very little power. There we go. All right. This right here is a tight corner. And let's see what, whoa, man. You feel that? Maybe you can see the rocking. Oh, wow. It's uneasy, but we didn't roll over, so I mean, I guess that's pretty good, right? Other than the fact that this is really big, really slow, handles terribly, I mean, it's a decent ride, that's for sure. And the great thing is that, you know, because you're so big, people love to tailgate you because you go very slow. Of course, usually that's not a factor in my other cars, but there's a car literally almost about to run into us. I don't know if you can see it on the camera here, because we don't have really enough pulling power to go up this hill. So if you're really into antagonizing other people, this is a vehicle for you, because you're just limited in how fast you can go. And it's amazing because even myself, when I'm behind one of these, I'm always upset that they're going so slow. But the reality is, that's just as fast as they can go. Every now and then there's this horrible sound that comes from the suspension. I'm not quite sure why that is, but I will tell you that my suspicion is it's because, again, the coach was built on top of this chassis. It wasn't all built as one unit. And I think there might be some compatibility issues. Again, with my luck, that'll probably end up failing somewhere out in the middle of the Mojave Desert. You know, like a million degrees, melting, dying. This is a very possible scenario I see. So that car's really pissed off because they're stuck behind us. Anyway, it's great.
I think we got the bird flag.
Oh, whoa, did you hear that? What was that? Yeah, I don't know what that noise is. It shows up every so often. It's kind of weird. Now, in a regular car, you take it back to the dealer. But in one of these, I don't know, the dealer seems to know nothing about what's going on with these. It's weird. You call in, you try and get some information. It's horrid, to be honest with you. All right, so you know Drew's with me. We're rolling here. We have to swing through and pick up some water, fresh water. That's, of course, another thing that we're not used to in my other cars. So we will go and take care of that and then be off on our next adventure. However, of course, we have to pick up Natalia and my parents and go to many various places that I have no desire to go to, and then, you know, it'll be burning hot. That would be the case. So on that note, have a good weekend. See you next time. In fact, you know what? You know what some of you might do is contact Ara on his Instagram if you have questions about motorhomes, because the more I think about it, he knows more than me. I mean, I think his motorhome actually towed the race cars and stuff. I'm not sure. You know, I'm not actually sure about that. We should probably ask him. Hopefully someday he'll get out here and he can be on the channel, and then we can hear all sorts of stories about him and his endless women. You know, and then there's me slaving away, working hard, and now I dig ditches, and he's enjoying the good life, retired. I don't know. It's just something went wrong. Bad life decisions for Adam is what I think.